Hello everyone, it's Lennon. I was watching a video because YouTube has turned into my TV, okay? And I tend to watch YouTube and all my tarot, witchy, just all my peeps more than I do like actual TV. And I was watching Bronia over at Bronia K Spiritual, and she had posted a video about getting back to tarot, which was her hashtag get back to tarot. I think in response to a whole bunch of other hashtags that have come about on the tarot tube about consumerism and deck overwhelm, which I've made a video about already, and how I think, okay, and Bronny, you can tell me below, I think it was so clever of her to make this video in response to all those hashtags as a way to kind of say, okay, can we stop complaining about certain things? It's not so much she's trying to negate honest reviews or anything like that. It's more so that she's like, can we like talk about the actual tarot? And I found that so clever, and I did find it inspiring because what it made me do is it made me think about my practice in kind of a new way, because we tend to like the juicy stuff. We tend to like to get on and listen to honest reviews and walkthroughs and things like that. And like first impressions, I tend to like first impressions and reviews more than I do like flip throughs, because I want to hear what people actually think of decks, you know, and what the images are saying to them at first reactions and things like that. But that's usually where it stops. The videos is like their initial responses, and then that's it, unless it's a deep dive or something like that. I think that it's been so interesting to listen to all the hashtag not my tarot aesthetics and how people have kind of twisted that, not in a negative way, I don't mean to say it like that, but they've kind of morphed the not my tarot aesthetic into something positive, and how we may accumulate decks that aren't our bag, you know, like aren't our typical bag, or what the art that resonates with us. The deck that's not our aesthetic may have turned out to be a really good reader for us. They have profound messages. They are able to actually unlock certain points in our intuition and things like that, and really build that muscle. Now, in my opinion, I believe that it's that type of not my aesthetic that actually makes your brain work harder. Because now I'm not an expert in this, in psychology and things like that, but I believe when we look at things that we know we like, our brain's already like been there, done that. But it's when we're giving our brain something that we don't want to look at, or that we don't usually look at, and it's kind of something different, our brain's like, hold up, we got to process this. We don't know what the hell's going on. So I think that that's kind of why the art that we use, and it's not our bag, it's not our aesthetic, actually works well for a lot of us, is the imperfection of it to our brain, like, you know, the newness of it. I was watching Bronia's video, and I was having all these thoughts about all of the tags going around, and like her tag, of course, linked to this her video as well, like get back to tarot, let's talk about the tarot. And then at the very end of her video, she like went through some old tarot journals, and I want to touch on this too because it got me inspired to do the same thing. When you're first starting out your tarot journey and you know nothing, it can be overwhelming, but there's a thrill there. There is definitely a thrill of the chase. You know, you're learning things, and you're writing everything down, even if later years it's not going to make a minute difference. You know, you look back and you're like, okay, why the hell did I write that down? And it must have been in a blog or an article or a book somewhere. You thought that it was relevant, but after you've built a practice, you realize that like statement wasn't really relevant. You're like, oh, I don't really believe that about the Tower card, so scratch that out. And I think that that's what's beautiful about a tarot practice. But somewhere along the lines, having done tarot for like over a decade, you know, I think that we concentrate so much on forward movement that we don't look back in hindsight, which I value a lot, is that looking back in hindsight. Now, this isn't to say that we need to be living in the past. It's more so, I think that it would shape the future, like weave a better for you practice in tarot if you can assess what you've written down previously in the past and realize to yourself, oh, well, I don't really think that anymore. And then you go and chase, you know, your path kind of like does this. And it's because you have looked back in hindsight that you can figure that out, that your path weaves and you know, bobs and weaves throughout your life. If you keep going and you never kind of like look back, I think that sometimes that's important to do that. I mean, not to get too technical with this, but it's actually been pretty profound because I've been doing the same thing in the last couple of years, is wanting to learn all the new things. And it may just be that I'm trying to get the thrill back of not knowing anything, like that sort of innocence that I had with the tarot at the beginning, not knowing what was relevant, what was important, what wasn't, what I believed versus what other people believed about certain cards and messages, building my intuition. I keep going this way, and I'm looking for news spreads, and I'm looking for new ways to build my intuition, and reading articles I've never read before, and trying to get back that thrill of learning, even though I've been doing it for so many years. And I don't think it works like that way. I guess to an extent. But this video of Bronia's inspired me to kind of go, let's go back a little bit. You know, let me go back to the beginning and see if some things that I've written down, I don't know, clear up some things. And that way, when I move forward, I can not be so severe about what I want to be looking up, you know, not be so stoic on my path, be allowed to kind of change it up. Or it may have been something that I was adamant on, you know, like I could have written something down that I was adamant that I didn't like about this, or I'm definitely not going to do tarot like this, or I'm definitely not going to think of tarot like this. And I kind of change, you know, like I kind of change and evolve. And then maybe I decide by going back and looking at my old tarot journals that, you know, maybe I will try that to chase the thrill of the new. It's not always going to work, you know, when you're adamant, when you feel that deep, that you have that deep feeling of, oh, I don't really, you know, I'm still not interested in that. You don't have to force it. Okay, it's not about that. It's more so about just trying to kind of be a little bit more lackadaisical with it, you know. So I did get out some of my composition notebooks because I tend to write in these more so than I do anything else. I just love like I don't know what it is about composition notebooks. It's like mystery, Harriet the Spy type of shit about composition notebooks that I just love. Plus I love the durability of them, like and they're kind of innocuous, you know, so it's like people tend to not really want to open these up and read the damn things. So it kind of keeps them secret, you know. People are like, oh, that's just bullshit because it's in a composition notebook. So I've been getting some of my journals out and looking at them, and it's been like so cool to go back and read some of them. But I wanted to talk about like the tarot journal itself, but I think it's a beautiful thing that what it inspired me to do after reading all my journals is to get out a fresh journal and come at tarot like in general, like just tarot 101 or specific decks, deep dive with like specific decks in my collection, and act like this notebook is my very first tarot notebook, and come at it as a beginner again, and see what that unfolds. Like, see how that type of newness with it. If it'll bring back the thrill, you know, of the, oh, I'm doing this, I'm a beginner again, you know, or if it unlocks certain things about the tarot, about how I feel about the tarot, and if it shines light on some new things that I didn't even realize. I'm kind of hoping that it takes that kind of a role, but we'll see. I'm trying to be organic as possible with this, but it did inspire me to do that, and I wanted to share some things from my very first tarot journal, which, like I said, was from over a decade ago. I mean, it's beat the hell up, like, but it was so profound. I really set it up. I think the most interesting thing I found in this journal actually came out was the wild unknown symbolism, and I went through every single card. The interesting thing about this is that I do not own this deck. I didn't at that point. I have a like knockoff version that's shit, that I showed in my like shop my shelves video, but I don't own an actual copy of the Wild Unknown. I did this from a walkthrough, and it was one of those walkthroughs that was kind of like a review, so it was longer. It was probably Kelly from The Truth and Story that I watched, and you know, she's got like hour-long reviews for decks on her channel, and I was able to mute it. I remember muting it so I didn't hear her talk, but the way in which she reviews decks, you could see a card for minutes before she would flip, because she would actually talk about it. And I remember going through and just like having it on my phone and writing all of my first impressions down from her walkthrough. I guess I thought at that point, and I'm not sure, this is probably not from a decade ago, because I don't think this deck came out a decade ago, but I think at the sort of, you know, when this deck came out, I think that I thought that I wanted it. And that's why I did this. I mean, I basically did my first impressions, you know, went through and put them in my journal, every single card, because I thought I was going to buy it. And I still technically go through that type of process when I think I want to buy a deck. I go through walkthroughs, and I really look at the images. I'm not someone that typically buys a deck without looking at all the images. Like, I just cannot do that. Like this, oh, I want it to be a surprise. Like, no. Because my luck, there's bound to be a section of that deck that I just don't like at all. Like, and I always have that thought in the back of my brain. I'm like, there's bound to be like 20 cards out of this whole deck that I just hate. So I just can't do it. Plus, I want to know up front that I will actually physically work with that deck. I know a lot of people collect because they're beautiful decks, or it's FOMO, or whatever the hell it is, the reason you collect. You know, no judgment. I don't care what you do. But for me, I don't collect in that way. I want to actually use all my decks. So I have to be able to jive with them, and I do these types of like initial feelings through the images, through the walkthroughs, sometimes, like I said, on mute. So I still do this, but the fact that I still don't own this deck is pretty crazy. So I found that, I don't mean to like talk your ear off about that, but the way I set up this this particular journal was, it was kind of like a diagram. So I put full here, I put my instincts, like my initial response to the Fool card, other meanings that I found like through articles, blogs, what have you, the 21 door theory, so that's the Fool's Journey for me. And I do really resonate with the Fool's Journey with tarot anyway. The Rider-Waite-Smith book, which is like the pictorial key to the tarot, which now I think that that's a shit book. Like, yeah, it's Arthur Edward Waite's interpretations, but it's too religious for me, and it tends to be triggering more than anything else. And then my keyword, like, after all of this, I plugged in one word that for all the majors that resonated the most. Like, I put daydream for the Fool. You know what? Why don't I read y'all my keywords for the major arcana? This is specifically the Rider-Waite because I learned with that. You know, coincidentally enough, I have all of these types of journals for the Thoth because, you know, that's like my love. But not organized like my very first one. Maybe I should do this like an organized journal for the Thoth. That might be pretty cool because I love the Thoth more than I like any of the other systems. So I need to do like a beautiful organized composition just for the Thoth deck. That's epic. For the Magician, Create, High Priestess, Intuition, Empress, Nurture, Emperor, Command. Is there some shadow there? It's also funny, like, I put this little glyph here. A candle color. like, I don't know where that came from. But every single major's got, like, crimson for, what is it? The Chariot. Wine red for strength. Anyways, conform for the Hierophant. Alignment for the Lovers. Now that's a good keyword. I'll have to go back to that. Determination for the Chariot. Resilience for strength. Recluse, or, well, solitude for the Hermit. Fate for the Wheel of Fortune, definitely. Law for justice, which we could say that justice is technically the key word for justice, in my opinion as well. Reflection for the Hanged Man. Oh, I wonder why I didn't put perspective. Maybe because I really wanted these keywords to like also be indicative of life, I guess. So reflection, transformation, death, of course, temperance, harmony, self-sabotage for the Devil. I mean, I guess to an extent sabotage would be a good keyword for the Devil, but the keyword I would put now is ecstasy. So that's the Devil's candle color is ochre. It's like a mustard yellow. The Tower, instability. The Star, hope. The Moon, mystery. I like that. The Sun, illumination. Okay. Release for judgment. Ooh, see, I like that. Like, you know, if you think about this like rapture-esque picture for the Rider-Waite-Smith, you know, that's like the people go up, you know, they're getting pulled up to heaven, their bodies or their souls, really. But I do like this sense of release with judgment. I think that's cool, like a renewal almost. And then the World is completion. So cool. I like that it's so organized. I mean, it doesn't look pretty, but it's so organized. Like this is the pentacle sheet, and this little blurb is like what the pentacles mean. Like to me, like in general, in terms of like rules, and then A's through 10 down here, and then I've done that for every suit, just like a little, you know, blurb on the minors, and then the courts have their own section in the back. I did Ace through 10. I did numerology, which is pretty cool. Like going through what all the Ace through 10 means in terms of numerology. Now, what I found fascinating about the back section is the court cards. I went through, like here's the court cards of the Pentacles. I know you can't see, but I'm not trying to show you. I did the personality traits so that I could further relate to the court cards. I think that the court cards were one of those things when I started my journey that I found the most difficult, I guess, is to kind of learn who these people were and to kind of modernize them a little bit. But I'm going to make another video on that. So, but that is a lot of what helped, is to put their kind of personality traits. Like, for instance, the Pentacles, the Page is the crafter, the Knight is the promoter, the Queen is the inspector, and the King is the supervisor. And like, we can actually think of people in our lives that hold these types of roles or occupations, or it's like the way in which they go through life. They would hold these types of traits, the trait of the crafter, the promoter, the inspector, or the supervisor. So, and that helps to, I don't know, put some kind of practicality on the court cards. So it was really cool. And then in the very back, I just like wrote every single card in the minor arcana down in like a box and wrote my initial findings, like more of my instincts with what the cards mean. So cool. Oh, I did affirmations for each card, like a phrase, like the aces, thumbs up. Which is kind of ironic because there's like hands in the aces. So cool. For the devil, I just want to read this affirmation. The devil is in the details. Like, how's that for an affirmation? Anyway. What is this? Oh, I did these affirmations for every single card. For the 8 of Swords. Inside job. Exclamation point. Okay, that's what it is. Oh, okay. So, I think that the most interesting thing that I found with getting inspired by Bronia's video was going over my journals and realizing what it is that I valued about tarot, what it has done for me. I thought about what it has done for me over since learning. But it also got me thinking about the rules of tarot, like the fundamentals, like the bare bones, and how this would seem like the bare bones, but a lot of this is my own stuff. And I think about tarot, like how people have talked about, like, okay, go ahead and learn the fundamentals and the rules. But it's so nice to think about people who take a Picasso-like stance with it also. Like, for instance, Picasso was one of those, once you know the rules, then you can break the rules, you know? And it got me thinking of people that know the fundamentals and they've learned the tarot, but then they kind of broke the rules in the best way. Like, the way they read certain cards. It's like, probably 10 years ago, we wouldn't have looked at the tower like we do now, you know? We wouldn't have looked at certain cards like we do now because we've evolved. We know what the fundamentals, the bare bones of that card is. We know like what its astrology's doing and what it's doing numerology, numerologically, and it's like, okay, once we know all this, we can kind of change it to fit how we want the tarot to work for us. And that's breaking the rules, ultimately. And I think about the decks that have broke the rules in the best way possible, like the Wild Unknown. I think that even if I don't have it, I can recognize it for what it is. It is a tarot deck that broke the rules of tarot in the best way possible. That has broken the rules so well that it's become such a popular deck, even though it's technically a system all its own, you know? Which leads me to my next point, which is decks that don't have a system of the three major systems. They have like their system-free decks. Like Ellen Lorenzi Princess decks are like my soul decks. Those types of decks that don't adhere to Rider-Waite-Smith, Crowley-Harris, or the Marseille, I think those people are breaking the rules in the best way possible as well. You know? And I think that that's fascinating. I tend to be drawn to those types of decks. Now, we're all drawn to clones, okay? Because they're beautiful and they've somehow modernized what wasn't when the original systems were made. And I like the modernizations that people have taken, that they're beautiful. But I do value the system-free decks as well for their ability to show us that the rules of tarot can be broken to fit whoever's practice it resonates the most with. Know the fundamentals, then break the fundamentals, and then build off of all that, you know? And it did, I guess I'm coming back to a point here that what this video inspired me to do, besides the journal and all of what goes with that, is to get out my very, very first tarot deck, which is #NotMyTarotAesthetic. Okay. For real. There's something about this art that just does not pull me in. And I keep wanting to just I want to love it because it's the original Aquarian, like from the 70s, which doesn't really fit the images, to be honest with you. Like this bright blue, but these like subdued Art Deco, it just doesn't fit. But, you know, whatever. But I never loved this. I just never did. Even though I was gifted this at a yard sale for free, it could have just been that lady at the time, over a decade ago, wanted to gift me what she assumed would have been my first deck because of the superstition that surrounds that. So it could have just been that. It may have not been as mysterious and witchy as I thought it was, you know. But this whole thing, going back to like my original journals and things like that, it inspired me to get this deck out and really try to like force myself to use it to see if I could learn some things, you know, to unlock certain things about the cards. And I do. Some of the cards have a different vantage point with their cards, the fact that they're laid out in certain ways. Like here's the King of Swords, like you see he's up close. I kind of like that. Instead of we seeing him on a throne, I kind of like that, you know, the angle is different. You know, death is up close too. Still all the symbolism, sunrise, fucking skeleton, the flag with the, you know, cross of humanity on it, yada yada yada. Even though it does bother me as an occult symbol lover, it bothers the fuck out of me that this isn't a white rose, okay? Ugh. But it's just the symbolist in me. One thing I noticed when going through this is that a lot of the cards have these beautiful like scenes in the back, like a sky of some sort. Like this is a blue sky. And then a lot of cotton, what I call, okay, hashtag trademarked, cotton candy sky. It's my favorite type of sky. But then there are so many cards that have a lot of white space, which is another thing that upon looking through all the images, you know, years and years ago, was I didn't like that. It just felt somehow undone. But upon getting it out of its, you know, dresser home, and really trying to like force myself to feel out the images again, I realized that the white space could be actual unknown, like the unknown, like capitalized the unknown, as a way to tell us, you have to put this scenery here because this particular card, whatever the message is, it's going to be more subjective than a card with a full scene. Like the Eight of Cups here. There's a white background, right? And it could be that what we're moving towards and away from and all of that is going to be subjective for everyone. It's going to be different for everyone. And we have to kind of fill in the blank ourselves. So that's kind of the take I'm going with this. Like this, the Magician, like the actual major arcana. There's a lot of white background to the Magician as well, but I think that is because what is unknown in the Magician could potentially just be the way in which you're wielding the elements, the way you utilize the elements, all the suits, is your own personal brand of magic. It's not a universal thing. So anyway, so that was like one of my initial thoughts, is that I had to find a way to overcome this undone, like unfinished white space. And it really did take me on a journey with the cards. So anyway, I'm going to keep working with this for the next couple of days at least. Because I don't want to piss myself off too much with just, being so severe and working with this deck. But it has been pretty cool to like work with it and see what I could see. And I was inspired to do this from Bronia's video. So I do appreciate Bronia for making that video. I think that she was so clever in making that video. And I want to go and stalk the tag and see if anyone else has like mentioned Get Back to Tarot and how they've kind of interpreted that. But this is how I have, and I'm gonna do some journal work and work with the tarot and get back to it. So don't forget to go and check out her channel and video links below. Go show her some love, and I will see everyone soon. Much love.